follows. So we have 6 panelists, and every one of them has his own opinion on the topic we discussed today. And as you understand, the question of cultural policy, about any limits in this policy, who is setting the rules here, that I think it's a more philosophical question, and opinions can be also different. That's why we can hear today also different things on it. We can also dispute on it too, but every one of us would like to have a cultural environment around us, not degrading, but the one bringing us to something what is good, because we really want to do something in this environment in order to have respect towards each other, and I hope this discussion will contribute to it today. Let's start with the questions. Quite often when we talk about the cultural policy, usually we say straight on, do you need and certain restrictions and censure, and people understand different things under it. When this many think that censure is when the government regulates something. The other think that the censure or censorship is something when the authors regulate or control something. So in this case, the limitations are more public. The other people may think that the censorship should not exist at all, because the artists are free from the very beginning. And if we talk about the arts, that is the area where the people can implement themselves in a very free way, and any regulations are not accepted. That's why I would like to start and give the floor to Yuri Ryazanov. He can say a couple of words what he thinks to this topic. We can probably listen to the opinion of everyone, of every single panelist, and then we will start a discussion. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. This forum is economic, and we all really look at China with a significant, and why? Because China has been developing for the several years, because China is a manufacturing country, and China has very low taxes, 20%, and Trump also imposed this 20% tax, but that is not enough. However, China has not only the economic policy but very serious censorship. China has its own Chinese net, Chinese internet. China closed internet completely, because now if we talk something about internet, we have also Article 241 about the proliferation of pornography, because even an 8-year child can also find and make women in the internet. What does the school say? And the examples in the internet are so good, and the parents usually sometimes tell their children, go to the internet and search for what you need, because we send our children to the internet, which is unprotected. It was not even a year ago. Probably I'm mad, but now Yandex is proliferating not only pornography but also Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, we were living in a Sodom and Gomorrah, and let's imagine our GDP in 10 or 15 or 20 years. Why do we have these hurricanes and tornadoes in Thailand? Now we have a very significant tension in the world. I believe Russia will be saved. Every single day 100,000 kids enter the internet. It's very easy to do, and nobody who is saying that internet should be closed down. Now we have Article 241, which is the proliferation of pornography, and it doesn't work. Nobody was punished in line with this article. So your opinion is clear. There is no opportunity to limit this kind of information proliferation in the internet. I think the Soviet Union survived and was successful because we had restrictions for the movies on not under 16, and you were not allowed to go to these movies. So all the children, they don't go to the cinemas, they all sit in the internet. We just need to bring everything to the order. So we got your point. Dear colleagues, would we like to contradict with it? Joseph Diskin, now the floor is yours. Because we don't need to use with the hands in this area like cultural policy. We should be very accurate. So suddenly Vladimir Lenin is guilty of towards us when he said that the arts was belonging to the people. The arts is not belonging to the people. Only the culture belongs to the people. So the human beings, as social beings, were born together with the culture. So the broadcasting of this regulation is the culture. Then we understood that there are some expressive means which help us to fix the concrete these particular norms. So in the past we had a culture which was the part of the religious life, then it became a part of a public life in ancient Greece, for example. So we need to understand that the culture and arts have different legal frameworks. These are two different institutions. The art is using traditions and experts, and the society has nothing to do here because there is a professional environment. The society can only say, please do not disturb, do not destroy. When the society gets involved, when we start use the products of culture and art. First thing, let's give the opportunity to artists to create freely. But when the artist goes to the wide audience, then the audience is entitled to express the opinion to what social consequences this particular piece of art can bring to. We need to understand the nature of what is happening, because we're talking about the art, that is one story. If we're talking about media, this is another thing. And we need only use the law we create for each other, because the art has its own standards and laws. The culture has other norms and systems, and the mass media also have their own standards and laws. We have also the problem of the law implementing, executing practice. Let's think where the mass media breach the current law with the pornography and so on. But let's understand what are the consequences of the actions if our society accepts the same norms which are currently in use in China. Do we need additional social political tension? Our commission, what are we doing now? We have a problem. this is the pseudo-religious extremism proliferation in the internet. So there is a system which informs us, and we also inform the authorities, and we also expect a new law to be adopted in the nearest future to close down some of the websites. And those who are the lawbreakers, they have to be not present in the internet. So I would like to finish with what I started. You don't need to fight in the art, you need to act professionally. You need to understand the art is one story and there is no censorship needed, but when it goes out to the public environment, in this case we have other laws, other criteria. First of all, the public mechanism, the self-regulating mechanism, and the law should be the very last tool to be used. And third, this is the mass media. So it is actually don't need to get rid of the freedom of internet, but we need to eliminate the excessive actions of mass media. We need to punish these excessive cases. Probably somebody should go to the jail because they are enemies of the Russian society. Do we have any time limits? First of all, Vitaly, now I would like to ask you, because there are different aspects here. There is a pure technical aspect. We can also limit in doing those things which are pure breach of legislation. On the other hand, when we should also talk about the moral climate in our society, what can you add here? I would like to start with the contradiction. I think it's to divide very strongly the art and the culture with their own legal systems. It's the same as divide the police and the traffic police, because the police has its own laws and the traffic police has its own laws. Another very simple way how to avoid the discussion or the senseless discussion, so you don't need to abuse anyone. So we have also different pieces of ways of art. I don't want to be rude right now. That is my topic, my professional topic. I can tell you right now that the culture is something what is differentiated in different parts of the society. But if the culture is sick, and sick because the culture is no more dynamic as it should be, it can be also affect all the parts of our life. We cannot really separate the mass media from the art. Because this virus of degradation worked really very strong within the last 30 years. Actually, this virus almost everywhere because our mentality is sick with this virus. And the topic of our debates is the cultural policy, and that is a very comprehensive approach. Now let's go to the main part of our topic, the merits. Am I limited in time? We will first listen to everyone, and then we can also discuss everything what you say. I want to say that the starting conditions, the context of our life are not so bad, so there couldn't be any good position. Let's regulate this or that law, and everything will become bad again. And I would like to tell you that our cultural policy has certain changes. The Minister Medinsky adopted a new strategy for the governmental cultural policy in 2016. We also got these kind of terms like cultural values, but these approach is a kind of compromise, is very compromised. I'm talking about the official approach from Ministry of Culture, and the society is in chaos and this degradation. When we talk about some other countries which are industrial ones, like Belgium, United States, and the other countries, they have a very good policy in culture, and we can only copy some good laws and norms and standards from there. But here we get a question. The current state of our Russian society, does it correlate with the current state of the society in those countries? I will give you an example from an absolutely Russian. So we got a new law about the non-commercial organizations, and the United States also have a law on non-commercial organizations, and this law functions very differently in the United States, and you are really lagging behind the global trend and progress. However, the current situation which we had in Russia reminds more to what the United States had in 1930s when this law was adopted. So if we'd like to copy something from the West, we need to look first whether it really correlates with what we have here in Russia. Whether it correlates, so because the current state of Russia doesn't really correlate with the current state of Western countries. So we have to be really, really very smart if we like to copy anything from Western countries in terms of cultural policy. We need to develop our own approach, meeting the current momentum. So I really want you to be within 5 minutes during your first speech, otherwise there will be situations that somebody can talk longer than another one. Your position is more or less clear. Now I would like to ask Boris. You touched a very important topic, and I'd like to come back to what Yuri said, because internet is a reflection of the society, because everything is done by people. And I think it's a very serious question where the freedom of people is limited, because people understand it differently. Something, if you do see anything in the internet, it could be okay for you, and the other people can really disagree with you. How to find this balance? Probably not for the whole planet, but just for Russia only. First of all, I would like to protect pornography, because we people have needs, certain needs, and also understand how I was an adolescent in the Soviet Union. I was 15 or 14 years old in the summer camp, and my hormones were rising up, and I didn't have any internet, and had to actually peer through the door hole in the female's bath, and now I've got the internet. I think it's it's a good story. Now we have young ladies, young ladies, 30 minus. Please raise your hand who didn't see the pornography at least once. We were talking about 8-year-old kids, not about ladies here in the audience. Let's talk about the fact that the children can see the pornography in the internet. I think that is the great achievement of the European civilization, and Russian civilization is a part of the European civilization. Then we managed to live in the times when nobody prescribes to prescribes to go to the church. If you really want to go to the church, I can go together with you during the Eastern to the church. But if you don't want to do it, I won't bring you with holding by your neck to the church. We were talking about the 8-year-old child watching pornography in the internet. You know, I have many children. The youngest one is 4 years old, and the eldest one 35 years old. Probably I prepared myself very good in the summer camp, and I think that is not a problem of the Putin, and not the problem of the head of this commission It's my problem what my children see and watch in the internet, and my sons who are 4 or 6 years, I don't tell anything to them. And actually my daughter, who is 16, she is told by her mother how everything functions. Okay, nobody told me actually anything about it, and I got my first son when I was 17. So the answer is very simple. If there is no violence, if there is nobody lets you to do something, that's not a problem. But as for the children, we need to protect them. That is the responsibility of the parents if you are parentless. So in this case, the authorities should take care of you. As for China, China achieved this growth because it attracted the innovations from the European civilization, the market economy, the cash flow, the private ownership. For the 15th century, the China was developed much better than Europe and Arab world, and then China started closing itself and started degrading. The China was a colony, and when the Mongolians, the Russians, were able to rape China as good as they could. And now because the China was closed, and if you really think that you can also keep some values prohibiting different things, is when you try to limit the development. Probably you can get a quick win, but not a long-term win, because you will lose your competition with the more open societies. What happened to the Soviet Union? Vladimir, I would like to listen to your position. My position is more pragmatic. I don't want to dispute with the previous speaker. So everybody has a right to see or not to see, but because our supporters were fighting for propaganda of homosexual love for children, we also had the same opinions. If your child doesn't want to see it, he won't see it. But I really want to switch your attention to the cultural policy, whether the censorship is needed or not needed, whether we need to prohibit something or not prohibit something. I was a member of the working group at the Ministry of Culture because we were preparing the proposals of the ministry to this cultural policy. And I was really shocked. Do you know to what sphere the culture belongs? That belongs to the area of payable services. So, for example, if you talk about the massage saloon, the Bolshoi theater, and a restaurant, that's the same area to which the culture belongs, because this initial approach was wrong, and that's why we had problems with every single small thing. And if we manage to identify what the culture is, many questions will be answered. What is the governmental policy towards the culture and to everything what relates to the culture? The governmental policy, as Medinsky said, lets 100 flowers bloom, but we will plant only those who are in line with our values. So that's the right governmental policy. We don't prohibit, but we support only those what is correct, what the government thinks is correct. Let's don't forget one thing. Our Russian civilization, I don't agree that we are a part of the European civilization. We are separate. We are a separate civilization. Mr. Putin and me are of the same opinion. In this case, probably we are wrong, because that's a Russian Eurasian civilization which is 1,000 years old, because European civilization has an upside-down pyramid of value priorities in comparison to other civilizations. So in normal civilization has the basic values, why we are living, why we are developing. then we have the public and cultural relations, and then we have the consumption system and the production system. In the Western society, the basic needs is the consumption, then the public relations, and then the ideologists and the cultural guys can develop for you some values which can justify the first two layers. Since 1990s, we have this upside down system of values, and now it exists until now, because many things are not changed. If we talk about the governmental cultural policy, usually means the freedom of creativity and creation. Certainly, when is something what we inherited from our parents, it is something what is aimed at educating the same values. But if the culture is a part of a free market, if we talk about the paid service, I'm asking you for one more minute, because every one of us is only the buyer or a seller or a product if the culture is a product. So in this case, we shouldn't have any limitation, just offer you this product. Let's go further. What are we going to construct? That is something what I recommend you to think about. Colleagues, there is also a proposal, our discussion. If you look at this emergent situation, because we have here a window which can fall down. Now we have to move to the big hall. I would like to ask you to move to the big hall in order to be safe, because otherwise this window, this top window, can fall down on some of you. Dear colleagues, we apologize. But in this case, I can say, if you don't want, shouldn't be standing over there.